What is happening, boys and girls? Jim here, RCAD. Alright, today's video is going to be modifying the cab on the Huina 1550 excavator and installing a opening door on the cab of the vehicle. Now, initially I did this video way back in January 7th, 2021, so we're going to be going back in time on it. Today is April 9th, 2024, so this is some old footage that I recently recovered off of an old device. I thought it was lost and it's currently refound. But we didn't have an intro to this video, so this is going to be the introduction to our video. So excuse our introduction. We're going to be diving right into the process here with the cab already removed from the vehicle once we start off on our next portion of the video. So bear with me on this one. We're currently filming from our RC workshop / studio area here, which is the old pole barn. And when we did this project, we did the project in the old pole barn in the middle of winter with no heat, no insulation. So my hands are purple during the entire video. And very cold, very frigid working conditions, so take that into account here. Let's pull the camera off the tripod real quick. Once again, we're out in the new RC workshop. This is probably the second, maybe the second spring that we've had this workshop, so fairly new still out here. But the building is extremely old. This is like a 100-year-old building that's been moved several times before it was actually moved over to here. Never had insulation. Had open eaves on either side, so the wind would blow in on either side. Gravel floor. Now we have concrete floors. It's fully insulated. We've got a wood burning stove. We've got a small air conditioner as well. And all the work we were doing was right over here, right behind the TV, is where the old original workbench was, and grinder was set up right over there. So all the work that was being done in this video was performed right over there a few years ago. And wow, things have changed. It is now fully furnished. All our RCs hanging up on the wall, going all the way down the line. Mainly crawlers, of course, on this channel, mainly crawlers. A few firearms down there, pay no attention to that, you know. They were just getting ready to be cleaned. That's the only reason they're out of the cabinet. And yeah, so there we go. We're out in the new workshop. And once again, my apologies for not having a proper introduction to this video. Once again, this footage was just recently refound after being lost on an old device. So since we never aired it, how to do the whole cab portion and work on the door, we'll go ahead here and do it on this video. Alright, so let's get our camera back, loaded back up in our tripod here, and make our way into our disclaimers. I always like to do a little disclaimer here before any kind of modification videos, and that is whenever it comes to working on your RC vehicles, you're taking that responsibility into your own hands. If you decide to take a knife or a screwdriver, or you plan to do any kind of modifications to your vehicle, as soon as you decide to change your vehicle and modify that vehicle, that is your decision. That is your mind that came up with that decision. That is your hands that are working on the vehicle. If you mess up and damage something somewhere down the line, that is your fault. If you happen to watch a video such as this, or another video on YouTube or some other online source, and you see somebody modifying their vehicle and you want to do the same thing to your vehicle, and you mess up on it somewhere down the line, that's not their fault. That's your fault. So keep that in mind. Whenever it comes to working and modifying vehicles, whether it's yours or somebody else's, whenever you put your hands on that vehicle and turn a wrench on it and start working on it, you are taking that responsibility into your own hands. Any damage done to the vehicle is your responsibility. So just keep that in mind. Especially on a project such as this, when we're actually taking a knife to the body and doing some extensive cutting, which is cutting all the way around the door and getting that so we can open and close it, along with adding a hinge and a magnet and a driver to the vehicle as well, which we have an old school Lego Technic driver in here, which unfortunately you cannot find those guys anymore. Extremely rare these days to have something like that, and that's something that we just happen to have laying around since we were kids, because we happen to hold on to our old toys from way back in the day. So this is the finished product here on our excavator with our opening and closing door. We've got a little magnet glued right here on the inside, which we will see in the video. We have a little screw here going through the door, which makes contact with the magnet holding it shut, which works out okay. And our little Lego driver in there, not being sponsored by anybody, is a perfect fit. Lego, if you guys are watching, could you please start making these figures again? These Lego Technic figures. like to get my hands on a few more of them. And they are few and far between. All right, so without any further ado, let's go ahead here and move into our modification video. All right, so currently working on the cab portion of the Huina 1550 excavator, or 550 excavator. Project at the moment is cutting out the door, so we can put a little hinge on here and get this to open and close. Now, I've already made a few cuts here with an X-Acto knife or razor knife. Kids, have your parents do this for you. I'm not taking any responsibility for this. Anybody who takes a knife to their vehicle, you're taking that responsibility on for yourself. So don't hold me accountable for any cuts and abrasions. I did cut the top of my thumb right here with that razor knife. While I was making my downward cuts right here, it went a little too far. I was pushing a little too hard and slid across my thumb there. So nevertheless, be careful when you're using X-Acto knives and razor knives and things of that nature. So looking at the cab, right off the bat, guardrail here, a little handrail, that's just basically pushed into this little hole on the cab here. And you can take like a small screwdriver and just push on the back half of it and pop it right out. As far as the windows go and the glass portion of the cab, I want to leave this intact, so it's going to stay with the door when we open and close it. So I have to cut out a separate section of this plastic here to make sure that that stays intact with the door, so that's going to have to be glued onto the door. That way the cab glass can stay inside the cab, and the door glass will be attached to the door, essentially, or plastic in this case. So I used some Scotch Blue painter tape, not being sponsored by anybody, just letting you know what I used. And I put it around each seam right here where I'm making my cuts to cut that window out of there. So I put it on both halves of the plastic here, making sure to press it into the corners when I was coming up through here on the side of the windshield, because we're getting really, really close here to the front of the windshield with our cut, as you can see there. So I made sure to tape this off just to try to prevent any kind of splintering or shattering or anything like that. And I also made a little outline of my window right here, this little side window, this little guy down here. The cab in place. Oh, if it was pushed up all the way, which it's not, because my tape is taking up some of the gap. But I took that razor knife and just kind of ran it right around the inside of this window very carefully, just to leave a mark on there, because I'm going to paint all that plastic on the inside black. All the plastic that's not being used for the window is going to get painted black, so when we open up the door, you're not going to see that clear plastic in there. Alright, so taking a peek at it here, once again using a razor knife to make my cuts, being careful not to go overboard on it, don't want to push down too hard on it. So I'm trying to cut the plastic out and mark the glass where it needs to be cut at the same time. Coming around here to the bottom half of the door, initially I was going to run this straight on down and right off the bottom of the chassis, just come straight out with my cuts. But I decided to change my mind, and I wanted to leave a little bit of plastic here on the edge. So just a little bit of plastic there. Just so we got something holding the cab together between here and here, other than the door, because once again the door is going to be moving in and out. So other than our two fastening points right back here, only thing else holding the cab in place are these 2 points right here where it locks into the lower chassis plate there. So I put a piece of tape right along the bottom of the door here, because I wanted to leave some cab strength on here. Once again, you know, cutting it all the way down through is going to leave a gap right in between here and here that's relatively flexible. We only have our 2 mounting points back here, and our 2 little pins up here lock into the lower chassis plate. So I decided just to leave that little bit of plastic on the bottom of the door here, just so it has a connecting point between point A and point B on the cab. I just kind of basically put it right underneath this little nub, and then ran that line as straight as I possibly could across the cab, and then used a razor knife to start making nice gentle cuts in here to get this cut out. So I'm going to continue the process here, finish cutting this all out, and then I'm going to put a door hinge in right here and here, probably either one big door hinge or 2 small separate ones, and add a magnet on the inside to hold this in place. I'll probably have a magnet glued in right here and another one on the door, so they'll touch together and stick together. Either that, or I'll just have one magnet glued in right here and a metal plate or a metal screw on the door, so we can grab it and open it up. Basically just like a little screw head sticking out. Try to make sure it lines up with this little nub over here. Because on the real excavator door, it's got a little nub sticking up on the outside of the door. And when you open it up, you can swing it open and it'll lock into right here so it doesn't flop around on you. So we'll try to line that screw up so it's sitting right here, even with that post on the other side. Now once again, we'll glue a magnet in on the back half. And when we close the door, the magnet will stick to the screw, or the screw will stick to the magnet and hold our door shut. And we want to open it, we can just grab the little screw head and pull it open. So give me a few more minutes here to keep cutting on this upper portion here. I just took it and bent it out of the way so it's not in the way. We'll finish making our cuts here and get to putting the hinge on. Alright, so we got the door all cut out currently, so it's able to be removed without a problem, drawing our straight line across the bottom here. I'm getting ready to put our door hinge in, so right at the moment I put the window back inside there to kind of hold things in place, but my door where it needs to be, taped it back on for the most part. And I have my holes marked out for my hinge here. Measure twice, cut once. So my top holes are in the wrong spot. I was putting my hinge up here to the black portion of the door. This actually has a little ridge right here where it goes from yellow to black. A little bit of a ridge right there. So if you put it up at too high, it's going to be sitting uneven. So I had to bring it down a little bit and get it into the right spot where it needed to be. Right now I'm just going to go ahead here and drill a couple holes and get this mounted right where it needs to be sitting. Alright, so we have our holes more or less drilled here. I also spotted another hole right over here for the screw for opening and closing the door. Try to put that kind of right here in the middle of this cross brace. That way we have a good spot to hide our magnet on the inside when we glue that in place. So there's a peek of what we got going on right now. These might not be perfect, but whatever. I'll square them up with an X-Acto knife. Now taking a look at the glass portion of our cab. After getting our door window cut out and our hinge holes drilled in it, I came back in here with a grinding wheel. Literally this big guy right here. I put this thing on a grinder, gently grinding off the rough edges on it, coming in here and taking some plastic off the top. So I removed a little excess plastic off the top of here and down each one of these sides along the base of the windshield. I just trimmed all that excess stuff out, that way our door will open and close smoothly once we get it reinstalled in here. Because initially making our cuts, I just cut this out with an X-Acto knife essentially. So the gap is still pretty tight. So when we open and close it, it's going to have a pretty tight gap between all these panels here. So opening this up a little bit is going to help us out with having our door open and close smoothly. And I did pick up a little stress fracture right there. There's a line where I hit with a knife, got a little sideways on me. But a little stress fracture right there. Not the end of the world, boys and girls, because most excavators in real life have cracked windshields or busted windshields on them. So it's not out of the realm of possibilities. A lot of the excavators that I've seen and worked with have had cracks in the windshields, just like automobiles and whatnot. So once again, not out of the realm of possibilities to have a crack in your windshield or a scratch on your windshield, so I wouldn't sweat it too much. Alright, well, we've got the door cut out of the cab here, and the windows all cut out and everything else. We have our holes drilled for our hinge. Next thing I'm doing right now is applying some of that blue painter's tape on the outside of the cab here, just to mark off all the yellow spots on the outside of the cab that are going to be seen. I'm going to come in here with a little bit of black spray paint and just touch up all this yellow stuff on the inside with a little bit of black. No glass in here currently, so we're going to blast all this with a little bit of black spray paint. Try to match it up to the other side. Same thing with the door. Put tape over on the front side of the door. So we're covering up all the yellow and black that are on this side of the door. I'm going to come in here and blast the back edge and all the way around the edges of the door. And on the inside of the window area, on both the windows, and get this to one conforming color. So next step, paint. Alright, motoring along here, working on the cab portion, touching up paint before we put our door on. So what I did is I used some of this Scotch blue painter tape once again, and just wrapped the outside of the cab essentially. So looking at the inside here, the gap in the windows and door frames and all that good nonsense there. I didn't want to cover that completely. I just wanted to keep the tape nice and flat going across that. That way when I spray painted the inside, it would fill all those little gaps up and make our door and window trim molding and all that good stuff look nice and neat. So just a little bit of cheap flat black on that. Also painted my door hinge here flat black as well. Here's what it looked like in the beginning. Here's what it looks like now. Now going on to our driver's side window. It has this little window here on the side. So I want to keep our driver's side window clear. I want to keep this other little window clear as well, and I want to paint the rest of this black so it blends in on the back half of the door when we eventually put it on the door. I don't want this plastic being seen. So what I did here, when this was all still attached to the cab, when everything was still on the excavator, and everything was attached, I traced that little window out with that X-Acto knife. Just came in and just lightly traced it out and made sure that I put a decent little line on there. Yeah, I am scratching the plastic, but that was for a reason. So I traced it all out, traced out our little window from the other side, and made sure that it left a mark on the glass or on the plastic. So taping this off was a little bit more difficult. I took one more piece of Scotch tape, put it all the way across here, like that. So the whole thing was completely covered. Now the back edge is scribed all the way around the edge here. It's all scribed. And I took a flashlight, such as this, cheap flashlight. Turn it on. With our tape side up, not being able to see where we're going to be cutting at, because we're covering the whole thing up with tape, right? This is all covered with tape, so you can't see where to make your cuts at. So I laid it over top of a light, just like that, and it brought all the lines out and made it very easy to trace out with an X-Acto knife. Made it very easy to come in here and just trace all this out. Nice and neat. Just follow the lines and then just peel off the tape and leave your remaining tape behind. So my next step is coming in here and spray painting the back edge of the glass right along here, just covering up all these open areas. That way when we get our window put on here, everything will be all nice and camouflaged and we won't even see this plastic shining back at us. And then after that, our next step is to go ahead here and peel the tape off the doors and peel the tape off of the cab. Get our door hinge installed, get our little door opening screw installed right over here. Put our magnet inside the cab itself. It's going to be going on the back edge of the screw right back here on the inside of the cab, which the door should stick to once we get our little screw installed. And we should be almost finished with our whole cab opening door process. So just removed the tape from the back half of the door. Looks pretty good. Here's a shot at our door. Nice and clean. Getting the back edges of it. The camera doesn't want to focus in on it. Trying to hit my fingers, I'm sure, and focus in on those. Or focus in on the background. Yeah, there's a little shot at our stuff there. Not too bad all in all on the door. No rhyme or reason with this tape. Try to peel it off as efficiently as possible without leaving too much behind. Ah! Butterfingers. That's not the right one. Use this one. Trying to figure out the combination to this safe. Not looking too bad so far. A little goof up mark right there from when I was cutting. But you know, excavators get scratched in the real life. So I suppose it's not too far out of the realm of possibilities. Alright, there's a look at our cab portion. So, tape going flat across. We're not able to catch that little mark right there. I'm not really too worried about that. I could come in here and touch that up after the fact, or just leave it. Because once again, real world environment, equipment gets scratched, so that's not too far out of the realm of possibilities. Mainly, I just wanted to get the insides of the doors, insides of the windows, the whole interior of the cab. I want to get all that stuff painted black uniformly. Because right out of the factory, it's only black on one side of the cab, mainly back in here. And a lot of this stuff over here is all yellow. Kind of has a yellow-black fade going on the inside. So there is what we're looking at currently. Sorry about moving it around in a million different angles. I'm just trying to get my camera to focus in on this darn thing. It's not liking the cold temperatures. So yeah, I think we're looking good on the cab. Door's looking good so far. If I could pick it up, butterfingers, frozen fingers. Door's looking pretty good. Clean looking door. Only thing left is to come back in here and spray paint our window and peel the tape off of it. So we'll get that taken care of. After that, it'll be a matter of bolting everything back up, getting our door hinge on there, getting everything all attached, putting our little magnet on the inside here so our door can stick to it for opening and closing. And then eventually finding a driver figure for it. So we're just about done. I just need to come in here and paint this and slap it all back together. Alright, so while I'm waiting for the paint to dry on my window, I'm looking at the inside of our seat here, and I'm going to have to remove some material right here just for our door hinge to clear, just for the hardware for our door hinge. So our door hinge is going to sit on here somewhere like this, about like that. And we have to come in here and remove some material. I might have to lower this down a little bit. We're going to where our seat's at. I don't want this to go up too high into the armrest area, so I might have to blow these holes out and make them a little bit larger, which isn't that big of a deal because I'm going to use some larger screws on here than what I have set up here. So I might have to lower this down just a pinch. Nevertheless, I have to come back in here and clear out some plastic on our seat just in order for our hardware to clear on this. Pretty tight fit in there next to everything, and these are going to have little nuts and washers and whatnot behind them, so some of this material has to be removed. So I essentially just put our hinge back on over top of our door here, and use my razor knife, held this up like that, and use my razor knife to draw a couple lines in here so I knew approximately where everything needed to be. Another thing that I had done is on the inside of our windshield here, I came along with a Sharpie actually. My black paint marker ran out, so I came through here with a black Sharpie and just colored the edges of this plastic black all the way around here. Right along the front. That way when we have this sitting inside the cab, we have the door open, it's not going to be as noticeable along these edges, across the top and down the side. So it's not as noticeable. So grinding away our plastic in here, all this plastic on this machine is extremely brittle. You can't just come in here with a pair of side cutters and snip away. It just won't work. You're going to shatter the plastic. So you literally either have to use a small cutoff wheel and a Dremel tool to cut this out, or literally put it on a bench grinder and grind it out, which is probably what I'm going to do. I'm going to chuck in a Dremel tool and make my little lines up here. That'll probably smooth it all out on the bench grinder. Now I need a proper Dremel tool. I'm just using the small Dremel with the cutoff wheel on a big drill. So not the proper way to go about this. That is for darn sure. It sounds like the brushes are going in my drill. Well, making our marks anyways. So you're basically seeing how I'm going to remove all this material. Not very well, but you are. And that is a slow go, I tell you what. Kick this baby up in high range to get this done. Not the prettiest on the inside there. Come in here with a grinder and sand this down a little bit and try to square things up. Got a little overzealous there on my cuts, but we'll camouflage it in and get it cleaned up a little bit here. Alright, well, I got a little overzealous with my plastic trimming here and went a little bit too far. Quite a bit farther than what I needed to go. This little line in front of my thumb is basically where we needed to be. So I went a little bit too far with that, but not the end of the world here. I'll explain why. If we get this back in place, our hinge is going to come out to right about here. So once I figure out where all our hardware needs to be in here and how far it's going to extend it down into the cab after we get it all hooked up, I saved a little piece of plastic that I cut out of here. What this little guy right here. I can take this and just glue it right back into place on the inside here. Oops, excuse me here. So it's sitting flush. You can glue this piece of plastic right back up in here, and we'll never know that the gap was even there. Alrighty, we've got the cab door and window put in place. Hinges installed. I have to come in here with my little cutoff wheel and cut these screws off on the back here, which we're not focusing in on, but we need to cut those out of there, shorten them up. Same with these guys on the inside here. I need to come in here and just cut these off and shorten those up so we can get our cab in place, get our seat in place. Looking at our seat here, my next little step is going to be hot gluing this little piece of plastic that I cut out of there back into here to fill this hole. So I'm going to glue it in just like that. And we should be all set with that guy. It's not going to be perfect, mind you, but it'll definitely hold up fine. I use hot glue on everything in the factory anyways for most things. So just going to let that harden up in there. Put a dab across the bottom back here. Help seal the deal. Sorry if you didn't see that on camera. I was looking at what I was doing and not at the camera. I'll let that cool down. we get our door in place and everything else, we'll never even know it was there. Alright, so a little cutoff wheel is attached, and I'm going to attempt to cut these screw heads off of here. Uh-oh, I'm spinning off a nut at the same time. Kind of worried about that. Kind of wondered about something like that happening. Alright, round two. Close enough. And voila, she's good to go. Now we just got to worry about the ones on the inside of the cab. A little bit tougher access on those guys, especially for getting the cutoff wheel in here. So this is going to be an interesting job here. We're going to have to go from the inside out, and you're probably not going to see what's happening. Woo! Tell you what, talk about a sketchy project, especially with a drill and not a proper Dremel. There's one removed. Hopefully I can get lucky on the second one. There we go. Alright, close enough. Get our door open and do a little trial fit here with our bench seat. A little bit tight getting past the screws here. I might be able to pull up the cab a little bit and skate it past. Yeah, a little clearance issue here with the nut at one spot in the cab. Right about here. Alright, let's try that again. Took a pair of pliers and tore out a chunk of plastic in there. Turn that nut sideways a little bit more. Alright, well, we got our cab installed. See our screws down behind there, a little plastic panel blocking off our imperfections. It's just a matter of putting a magnet on the inside here and our little screw so we can hold our door shut. I'm going to glue a magnet in right here on the inside, right there. So we want to run a screw through this. It'll make contact with that magnet and keep the door shut. Okie dokie, we got our door on. We have our little doorknob put in place. Little M3mm screw, RC full drive screw. Not that it matters. With a lock nut on the back. And then right here on the side of the driver's seat, I glued in a magnet right there. Put a little hot glue on the back half. Use a black Sharpie to kind of camouflage everything back together. We're going to go ahead here and slap this thing back together and see what she looks like. Alright, we've seen the whole video on how to do that whole process. Man, it's not an easy process. Definitely not an easy process by any means. Not for the faint of heart, that is for sure. I mean, it takes a lot of guts to take a knife to your vehicle and start cutting on it. Masking tape, that is absolutely key, to put masking tape around both sides of the surface area that you're working on the side that you're cutting on the, well, not so much the side that you're cutting on, but on the back side, especially when you're cutting through this plastic right here going into the window. You want to have some masking tape on that on both sides just to ensure that you don't shatter that. But everything came out pretty good. And the painting of the plastic around the inside of the cab, we'll pull our camera off the tripod so we can get a better look at that. Painting that plastic on the inside of the glass along the inside here basically camouflaged all this. You really can't even see it. Here, flash on here. But before I painted all this plastic here on the inside, it stood out like a sore thumb. It was like just a clear plastic glow that was coming around the outside edge of the cab. So I just hit that with a black magic marker, of all things. and it did a pretty good job of darkening things up a little bit. Our little filler panel looks pretty good. Really, you don't even know it's there at the end of the day. Certainly don't know what's there from back here when you're filming. That's for darn sure. Yellow lights. You know, it's a real bummer that Huina doesn't include a light up here on the top of the vehicle, a yellow flashing light. I don't know why they go with that blue and red flashing light. That's like a police flasher down there. Who knows why they decided to use that on an excavator. But ultimately, it needs a yellow flashing light up here on the roof. Huina, hopefully you guys are listening. That's where it needs to go. As far as the name of the vehicle, you heard me call it a bunch of different names throughout the video, but Huina is how it's pronounced, Huina. And ours is damaged. We've got a broken arm right up here from not having any limiters on our servos. So if you're doing modifications to a new Huina vehicle, a 1550, and you're putting these jack screws on here, these worm-driven screw servos, make sure to put limiters on there. Otherwise, it's very easy to go past and start breaking things like your main boom, or ripping the ears right off the end of the dipper arm here, which is another problem. I overextended this and ripped the ears right off of the arm and had to use some Tamiya Hornet rear axle parts to get that refabricated. So it is what it is. So there we go, boys and girls. There's a quick look at the Huina 1550. This one is highly modified. There's a picture of our door. There's a final look at our door on the vehicle, once again being held closed with a magnet. Works pretty good, really, as far as things go. Not a bad little modification. There's no doubt about that. And this vehicle is highly modified throughout. Once again, we've got the Huina 580 motors in here, and a lot of weight added throughout the whole vehicle. The whole inside of the chassis is just loaded down with weight, lead weights across the back. Even the battery tray is just loaded down with steel bars. They're double-sided taped in here. The whole inside of this vehicle, you can just see the glue through the holes here, because the whole thing is just filled with metal. And it weighs quite a bit. I want to say in between 14 and 18 pounds or something like that. She's a heavy girl, no doubt about it. All right, boys and girls, there we go. As always, questions or comments are always welcome. Once again, I don't recommend a project like this for the faint of heart. It takes a lot of guts to take a knife to your vehicle. I don't show you guys how to remove the cab from the chassis, just because it's kind of like a little safety feature. If you don't know how to remove the cab from the chassis, then 10 chances to 1 you shouldn't be doing a project like this. And if you can figure out how to remove the cab from the chassis, then maybe you'll be able to get this done with a little bit of confidence. So there we go, boys and girls. That's the only reason I didn't show you guys how to remove this from the chassis. It's just because it's not an easy project to do, and it's pretty easy to mess up and cut too far. So once again, do at your own risk. If you decide to take a knife to your vehicle and modify it, such as this, you're taking that risk into your own hands. Just bear that in mind. And you can't exactly buy a new cab for these vehicles. If you mess up on your cab, you pretty much have to buy a whole new excavator. So keep that in mind as well. All right, boys and girls, that is going to do it. Very much appreciated for y'all sticking around and watching the video, and we will see you all on the next one. Thanks again.